The Last Church animation was re-uploaded by Warhammer Animations, but was originally created by Tyber, Portoghese. Please go check both of their content out, and the original video will be in the description. Thank you. Welcome to A Christian Reacts, and today we're going to be reacting to The Last Church animation by Tyber, Portoghese. And this was re-uploaded by Warhammer Animations. And before we get into the video, the way I do things on this channel is I bring the biblical perspective to things. That's how I set myself apart. Also, if you like what you see, please consider a like and subscription, as that really helps the channel out. And share it to all platforms and share it to yourself, as that really helps the channel out. So, but anyways, you're going to get something that really isn't talked about in the church. And I kind of go after the principalities, who these are. Like in Ephesians 6, verse 12 through 13, talks about these principalities and spiritual wickedness in high places, right? So that's what I kind of do. And I use Warhammer and recently Trench Crusade and stuff to kind of help explain this stuff. All right, now that you know, let's go ahead and get started. And I wanted to start real quick with what is church, right? It's quite easy. So 1 Corinthians 3:16 and 17. Know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you? If any man defile the temple of God, him shall God destroy. For the temple of God is holy, which temple ye are. Now, this goes with like the mark of the beast, right? The mark of the beast isn't just some mark. It's going to change you, right? Change your DNA. And how do I know this? Now, this doesn't have really anything to do with the last church, but we're kind of seeing what the church is, right? It's not a building, it's us. But anyways, 2 Thessalonians 2:4. Who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God, ready, sitteth in the temple of God, which is you, us, showing himself that he is God. Let's take this a little bit further. Revelation 13:50. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many would not worship the image of the beast should be destroyed. This is, in my opinion, an AI. We're getting very close to this, aren't we? And then we got something coming down the pipeline called the Neuralink. Isn't that interesting? But anyways, let's get into the video. So basically, the church is the people, right? It is not a building. Unfortunately, people miss that. But anyways, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, the following fan works. Now, I have done, so real quick, I have done a video on this in the past, but I didn't really know what I was doing. And it was like broken up into 1 and 2 parts. And the second one, I could have done a better job, and I said some things that I don't necessarily agree with now. So we're going to redo this here. And plus, I need to brush up on this. So here we are. Plus, some people wanted this as well. It's a good thing that wasn't loud. So if you guys don't know, this is the last church that is within the Imperium of Man, right? This is before the Horus Heresy, kind of on the cusp of the Great Crusades and all that. Revelation.
It is a cold night. I'm an old man. Please.
Which is the Emperor, by the way, if you don't know.
Welcome to the Church of the Fulgur Lapis. Do you wish to join us tonight? I don't recognize you.
No, I don't expect you would. Nor would I expect us to be anyone besides you and I.
Well, this is a surprise. My midnight sermons are considered quite popular in these parts. You're sure?
Quite.
What a shame. I had not thought I had aged so poorly as to scare so many away.
It is rare to find a man like you with a sense of humor. I have found that most of your kind are dour, leaden-hearted men.
My kind?
Priests.
Then I fear you have only met the wrong kind. Besides, given the times we live in, any servants of the Divine would find it extremely difficult to be of good cheer.
Very true.
I am Uriah Olothair, last priest of the Church of the Fulgur Lapis. Might I have your name?
My name is unimportant. However, you may call me Apocalypsis.
An unusual name.
Yeah, I think in here it's called that, but I think in the book it's Revelation, from what I remember. I could be wrong on that. But anyways.
For one who
You know, and real quick, you know, what's kind of not necessarily funny, but the Levites, right? They didn't have an inheritance. So it makes you wonder how many people nowadays would be priests and preachers if they didn't have an inheritance. But that's what the tithe was for, right? Since the Levites didn't have an inheritance, it was for, you know, animal offerings, and so they could eat and have stuff, right? That's why the tithe was prevalent. But anyways.
professes a dislike of priests. You are aware of the significance of such a word?
I am. It is suiting for tonight, however.
And why exactly would that be? What revelations do you search for in my humble church?
I seek no revelation. I simply wish to talk to you. I wish to learn what keeps you here when the world is abandoning your beliefs in gods and divinity. I wish to understand why you have yet to turn to the faith of science and reason.
You guys would be very, very surprised on how the Bible and science actually agree on a lot of stuff. In the book of Enoch, it talks about how the moon gets its light from the sun. And also, yeah, I'll be quiet on that one because that one's quite controversial. But let's just say it talks about how the earth was divided. But I digress. Anyways. It's if you want to know, it's the Peleg verse. You know, in the days of Peleg, the earth was divided, and it says Eretz, which means the land, the earth. But anyways.
The great fresco of Isandula. A divine work. Wouldn't you agree?
It is quite magnificent, but divine? I don't think so.
Then you have not looked closely enough. Open your heart to its beauty, and you will feel...
Real quick, Eretz can mean the nations, but you'll see when you look up the Strongs, it's usually talking about land, dirt, stuff like that, right? But anyways.
Feel the Spirit of God move within you.
And the whole world came running when the fresco was revealed, and the sight of it was enough to reduce all who saw it to stunned silence.
So you have read your Vestari.
So I...
Oh, and the Bible talks about how, which science is now, well, a lot of scientists knew that animals had personality and love and all that. It was kind of like this scientific dogma that animals were based off of instinct, right? But any pet owner knows that every pet is different. They all have their own personalities, right? Well, the Bible pretty much talks about how animals have the same kind of spirit that we do, right? And they go down to hell and to heaven. They could be both good or bad, right? Anyways, I'm trying to remember what scripture that is. I'll find it here.
I have.
You are a student of art?
I have studied much. Art is indeed one of my interests.
Then you cannot argue that this work was not inspired by a higher power.
Of course I can. I do not seek to diminish the artist's sublime work through allocating praise upon a greater being. Her artistry does not prove the existence of anything. No god has ever created art.
In an earlier age, some might have considered such a sentiment blasphemy.
I have only ever seen mortal men accuse anyone of blasphemy, Uriah. I have only ever seen mortal men act upon it. Were reactions to the accusations any less violent, I would label it a victimless crime.
Touché. But I have yet to see any...
Now, I will say, in the Ten Commandments, it talks about how there should be no graven images and stuff like that. You know, basically idols and stuff like that from what is in heaven, on earth, or below the earth, right? So no statues of like angels and stuff like that, right? And basically no idols. Now you can have artwork, which in the last one it sounded like I was saying you can't have anything in there or whatever. What I was trying to say is don't have statues of angels and statues of weird looking beings and and statues, even statues of humans, right? That's what the Ten Commandments say, right? And I know that they used it to convey what was going on, but in reality, they don't know what angels look like, or they don't know if they're being manipulated by a fallen angel or anything like that. So it says, the second commandment, right? Make no graven images of what is in heaven, on the earth, or below the earth, right? But art, is okay, right? But anyways, I just wanted to say that because the last one I did, I kind of sounded like I was saying not to. But anyways.
Scientists discover the root of inspiration.
The human mind is a wondrous thing. Do not be so quick to underestimate it. Tell me, Uriah, have you ever seen the great cliff sculptures of the Mariana Canyon?
No, though I have heard they are incredibly beautiful.
They are indeed. 1,000-meter-high representations of their kings carved in stone that no weapon or drill can cut. They are at least as incredible as this fresco, worked into a cliff that had not seen sunlight in 10,000 years, yet carved by a godless people in a forgotten age. True art requires no divine rationale. It is...
Okay, so real quick, so that animal one is Ecclesiastes 3:21. Who knoweth the spirit of man that goeth upward, and the spirit of the beast that goeth downward? There's more to it. Okay. As that one deleteth, so is deleted the other. Yea, they all have all one breath, so that a man hath no preeminence above a beast. For all is vanity, all go into one place, all are of the dust, and all turn to dust again. Who knoweth the spirit of man that goeth upward, and the spirit of the beast that goeth downward? Wherefore I perceive there is nothing better than a man should rejoice in his own works. Okay. There you go. So animals have a spirit just like we do.
just art.
You have your opinion, I have mine.
Isandula was a genius and a magnificent artist. That much is beyond question. But she still had to make a living, and even magnificent artists must take commissions where they are to be found. I am sure this work paid well, for the churches of her time were obscenely wealthy. Do you believe that she would be incapable of such a wonder?
He is right. Let's be honest here, right? Most churches care more about money than giving you the truth. Like I said in the last video, it pays to give, to sell emotion to people. But you convict people and give them the truth and, show them what's going on. They don't like that too much, do they? So you keep peppering them up, right? You keep giving them strawberry milkshakes. So that way, that milkshake kind of goes quickly and then they come back, right? But if you give them meat and potatoes, they're full. They don't need to come back. So that doesn't sell too well. But anyways.
If she had been employed by a secular government?
She very well may have. But
that's why I say religion. It puts an institution between you and God, right? When you need a relationship with God himself. And you can have that, right? Just read the Bible yourself. It's right there. You can grab it. It's free on the internet, right? You don't need to go buy it. So, but I would though, because it's hard to trust anything online anymore. They could pencil something in real quick and, so always have something physical. But, and like I say all the time, right? Get the information yourself, right? Don't believe me or any man. Get the information yourself.
But unfortunately, we shall never know.
No, we won't. We are fickle creatures, Uriah. All too often I am tempted to believe that the invocation of the divine is a ploy by the jealous to dismiss one's accomplishments.
Jealousy?
Absolutely. To see another succeed where you may have failed is a sobering thing. Some would rather choose to remain ignorant of their limitations.
That is a very cynical view of humanity.
Forgive me, but I have seen too much darkness to be so innocent as to always assume good intentions. Do not mistake my intentions, however. Only in understanding our weakness may we find strength.
Well,
I guess it all depends on
I
guess it all depends on what you call weakness, right? But anyways.
Discussion, but you must excuse me, friend Apocalypsis. I have to prepare for my congregation.
No one is coming. It is just you and I.
Why are you really here?
This is the last church on Terra. History will soon be done with places like this, and I want a memory of it before it is gone.
Boy, was he kind of wrong on that. I'm sorry. But man, I guess they don't necessarily have churches, but man, religion is definitely big in the Warhammer 40k.
If this is so,
the
then
40th millennium.
Let us sit. I would rather not stand for whatever time remains.
Master of Mankind, the book, really, you get to see the humanity of the Emperor. I recommend it if you haven't read it yet.
Your good health.
And yours. This is very good wine.
Oh, whoops.
It's old.
Now, I kind of want to debunk something here. You know how, like, you hear drinking is a sin or whatever. But part of the tithe, in the Old Testament, that if you couldn't make it to Jerusalem, you could sell your tithe, which was food, by the way. It wasn't money, it was food, right? And animal offerings, we'll just say. So you could sell your flock or whatever you're going to bring and have a party. And it says you can buy strong drink. Why would God say that if that was a sin? Now, if you're drinking and you're addicted to it or it controls you, yes, that's a problem, right? But drinking in itself, if you just have a few drinks, and as long as you're not getting blacked out drunk or like super drunk, you're fine. Okay. I mean, it's literally in the scriptures, right? Plus, Jesus himself drank a few drinks with the sinners, by the way, right? But anyways.
You have a fine appreciation of wine, friend Apocalypsis. My father gave this to me on my 15th birthday, and said I should drink it on my wedding night.
And you never married?
Never found anyone willing to put up with me. I was a devilish rogue back then.
No longer.
Yeah, I kind of feel that. I definitely was.
Rogue turned priest. Sounds like quite the tale.
It is, but some wounds run deep, and it does no good to reopen them.
Fair enough.
Friend Apocalypsis, tell me, what did you mean when you said this place was soon to be gone?
Exactly what I said. Even in your isolated state, you must have heard of the Emperor and his crusade to stamp out religion and belief in the supernatural. Soon, he and his forces will arrive to tear this place down.
I know.
It is, ironic that, which is probably supposed to be this way, that here he takes out religion and all that, but yet when he gets put on the golden throne, he, Lorgar and Erebus, mainly Erebus, who started it really, got this belief in the Emperor as a god, and it stuck pretty much throughout the 10,000 years. But anyways.
But it makes no difference to me. I believe what I believe, and no amount of hectoring from some warmongering despot will sway me.
That is an obstinate point of view.
It is faith. It would seem I'm not as fickle as you would posit, eh?
Faith. A willing belief in the unbelievable without proof.
Faith's strength is just that.
In a way, the Emperor's kind of a hypocrite on this, right? Because he had faith, in this coming golden age or whatever that he's trying to build of the Imperium of Man, right? And he didn't necessarily have proof of it, at least as far as my knowledge. He could have had some kind of inkling from chaos or whatever, but as far as I know, he wasn't given, he had to have faith that it was going to happen, right? But anyways.
It requires no
I could be wrong on that.
Belief is enough.
That is why the Emperor wants rid of it, then. You call faith powerful. I call it dangerous. Think of what people in the grip of faith have done in the past.
Well, one thing too is, I'm sorry to keep doing this, but sometimes faith does come from seeing, right? Trust me, I'll say this. I've seen some things where, let's just say, in my experience where, in my homelessness and all that stuff like that, I'll just say that my car auto-magically broke down in front of my mother's house, which then got me to where I am today. I can't explain that, but anyways.
All the atrocities down the centuries that can be traced back to faith. Faith is both the causation and the justification for so much evil.
In a way, yeah.
You come here just to provoke me? I am no longer a violent man. Such a goal would be boring and fruitless for the both of us. If this is all you are here for, I suggest you leave.
You are right, of course. I am being discourteous, and I apologize. I came to learn of this place, not antagonize its guardian.
I accept your apology, Apocalypsis. Do you wish to see the church?
Apocalypses.
I do.
Then come with me. The Fulgur Lapis.
So this is a holy stone?
It is, yes.
Why?
Why is it the Fulgur Lapis?
Looks more like an obelisk. If you don't know what an obelisk is, it's basically Osiris's member, we'll just say.
Lapis?
And unfortunately, you see this at churches and the Washington Monument, all that stuff. When you do see it, it's basically Osiris's wang, the missing member. So if you don't know, the Egyptian goddess, we'll just say, can't say her real name, she cut him up into 13 pieces, but was missing the 14th piece. So that's what Osiris's member was. It was the missing 14th piece. There's something that goes with that, but that's kind of controversial, and I won't bring it up. It just has to do with wood, I'll just say. But anyways, I digress.
I mean,
So when you
why
see
is it
that,
holy?
that's what it
Was
is.
it deposited on the ground by your god? Was a man martyred here? Or
It's not biblical whatsoever. If you see it at a church, then probably run away from that church.
did some young girl receive some sort of revelation while praying at its base?
Nothing so bland, rest assured, friend Apocalypsis. Thousands of years ago, a local holy man who was blind was walking in the hills hereabouts when a sudden storm came in over the Western Ocean. He hurried back down to the village below, but it was a long way, and the storm broke before he could reach safety. The holy man took shelter from the storm in the lee of this stone, at the height of the storm in the lee of the heavens. When he thought all was lost, he was lifted up and heard the voice of our Creator. And so he saw the stone wreathed in a blue fire, in which he saw the face of our Creator.
Did you not say he was blind?
Ah, he was blind no longer. The power of our Creator cured him of his affliction. He immediately ran back to the village and told the people there of the miracle.
And then?
The holy man returned to the Folga Lapis and instructed the townspeople to build a church around it. The story of his healing soon spread. Within but a few years, thousands were crossing the Silver Bridge to visit the shrine, for a spring had begun to flow from the base of the stone, and its waters were said to be imbued with healing properties.
And I wonder how much the priests benefited from it all. And what? It could cure diseases? Mend broken limbs?
So the
To be honest, the Emperor has a point there.
church records say. This bathing chamber was constructed around the stone, and people across the land came to bathe in the sacred waters while they still flowed.
I have heard tales of a similar nature in the Far East. A young girl claimed to have seen a holy vision of a woman while bathing near the springs closest to her home. She described a woman conspicuously similar to the holy woman of a religious order of which her family was a member. Bathing houses were established there too, but for fear of diminishing the rate at which the owners of the bathhouses.
See, one thing people forget, right? The Bible tells us to test all spirits, right? To test them all, to see if they be from God. One of the ways to test it is to say, did Jesus come in the flesh, right? And a lot of people, you'll see John Smith, right? He didn't do that. Others, have had these visions, right, of these entities coming to them. But you'll see a lot of them didn't really test the spirits, and they just kind of went along with it. And they went away, from the Bible, stuff like that, right? But anyways.
Could admit pilgrims, the waters were only changed once a day. The dying and diseased came in droves.
And again, I just want to make this clear. If you see an obelisk in front of your church, hit the road, man, because that church ain't good.
Passing through that water in the hundreds every day, so I'm sure you can imagine what a horrible slop it was at the end. They were but pools of blood, sloughed off skin, scabs, bits of cloth and bandage, an abominable soup of malady. The only miracle was that anyone emerged alive. Such a miracle was infrequent at best.
I cannot justify the actions of the greedy or the impure. I can assure you that did not happen here, if that is your concern.
Hematite from a banded ironstone formation.
I hate when priests use that word, impure. Because none of us are pure, right? Anyways.
Exposed by landslip during the storm, most likely. That would explain the strike. It seems to me that your holy man was not blinded by any physical defect, but was a result of hysteria or earlier mental trauma. It is not unheard of to be cured in such a manner.
Are you attempting to debunk the miracle this church was founded upon? It was our Creator's will.
And again, was this chaos, right? Did this stone have some kind of chaos power imbued on it? That's another thing too, right? You'll see a lot of these churches in the Warhammer 40k, or these religions and stuff, had to do with chaos and all that, with the chaos gods. So that's another thing, right? Test the spirits and test to see if it be from God. But anyways.
And if your explanation were to substitute mine, the nature of the event is still what I would call a miracle. The Creator's face was seen. His voice was heard. It is a malicious thing to seek to destroy another's faith, Apocalypsis.
I do not aim to be malicious. I am trying to explain how such a thing could have happened without the intervention of a godly power. You think that the way we perceive the world is the way it actually is, but you cannot perceive the external world directly. Indeed, none of us can. Instead, we know only our ideas or interpretations of objects in the world. The human brain is a marvelous organ, priest, and it is especially adept at constructing images of faces and voices from limited information. Imagine your holy man sheltering from the storm in the cover of this great stone when the lightning bolt hit, the fire and the noise, the pounding surge of elemental energy. Isn't it possible that an already religious man might, in such circumstances, perceive sights and sounds of a divine nature? We do it all the time. When you wake with dread...
I don't know. By the time you get older, you start realizing, at least in my opinion, I don't believe in coincidences too much. Is it possible? Sure. But there's always, if there's a cause, there's a anyways, I don't know if I'm saying this right, but if there's a cause, there's always, a reaction. And it usually comes from something, right? But anyways, I don't know if I'm explaining that well. So I'm just going to shut up.
Night. Is that darkness in the corner not an intruder instead of just a shadow? The creak of a floor.
Or as they say, coincidences are just God being anonymous or something like that. But anyways.
The tread of a murderer?
I agree. The human mind is a powerful thing. What I value most, however, is the ability to reflect upon the past and reach conclusion that that tap against my window was a natural occurrence, and not a murderer come to kill a lonely priest.
Given the origins and evolution of religions in the human species, it seems a far more convincing and likely explanation that it was a figment of happenstance and a creative mind. A holy man might make a miracle of simple good fortune because of a predisposition to believe in the supernatural. Don't you agree?
No, I do not.
Really? You strike me as an intelligent man. Why can you not concede at least to the possibility of such an explanation?
Because I too have seen my God and heard his voice. Nothing can compare with knowing personally and completely that the divine exist.
Ah, personal experience.
And again, test the spirits, right? To see if they be from God. Because that could have been a chaos god. Or a chaos power, right? Of some kind. But anyways.
The most valued kind. Tell me, where did you receive this vision?
On a battlefield in the lands of the Frank. Many, many years ago.
The Frank were brought into unity long ago. The last battle was fought nearly half a century ago. You must have been a young man back then.
I was. Young and foolish. Young and foolish.
Hardly a prime candidate for divine intervention. But then I've found that the least likely to receive it are often the most in need of it. I have read your holy book before. To me, most of the men who appear on the pages are far from ideal role models. Perhaps I should not be so surprised. The devilish rogue sits with me today.
That's why I said at the beginning of this whole thing, don't trust a single man. Get the information yourself. Especially don't trust a YouTuber, right? But anyways, that's why you shouldn't look up to men. You know, men will disappoint you.
Your tone may be pleasant, but your spirit is nothing but adversarial. You say you wish to learn of me, and this church will come. Let us joust with words, thrusting and parrying one's certainties with argument and counter-argument. Say what you will, but come sunrise, you will leave and not return.
This is my intention. I have other matters to attend to, but tonight I have to talk with you. My adversarial spirit is not born from any mal-will towards you, Uriah. My malcontent is born from my love for humanity. I would see our species in an age of wonder, without these constant wars and the ignorance that blankets our kind like a plague.
Boy, did it go south, didn't it?
I would see us ascend. I would see all of our kind raised to the status of godhood that is...
Again, see, he's got faith right there, but yet he's mocking faith. Right? He's got faith with these, you know, that this is going to happen and all that, but yet it hasn't happened yet. Right? So in a way, he's being a hypocrite there, in my opinion.
Is worshipped throughout the galaxy, but we are enslaved to the fantastical notions that reside within that book of yours, and all the others like it. That damnable book in your hands.
Well, it depends on where it's leading you to. Is it leading you to war and conquer and all that? Or is it like the 10 Commandments, right? Which is don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat on your wife, don't covet your neighbor's goods, right? Hey, keep the Sabbath, which is a God-prescribed day off of work. That's what it is, right? You know, and if you're base your stuff off of that, that's good stuff right there, right? Then you say, well, if you don't, you break it. Well, you, right? Not anymore, right? We have the Lamb of God. But anyways, I digress. Notice that a lot of things changed after Jesus came onto the scene.
Is a curse, and I would see you rid of it.
You go so far as to mock my holy book too? This damnable book provides a code by which I have lived a peaceful life, in which I have built more than I have destroyed, helped more than hurt. My time before this book was nothing but destroying and hurting. Untold thousands more live similar lives thanks to the guidance provided by our willingness to believe in something greater than ourselves. Tell me, Apocalypsis, when we, as a species, find your vision to be a reality, what will become of us? What will unite us? Peace can only be attained through an aspiration or a common enemy. And when that aspiration disappears and we as a species are gods without rivals, who will we turn on? We will turn on each other, friend Apocalypsis. Your vision will bring only an eternity of war.
He is kind of right in a way.
When gods clash, galaxies burn.
So what would you have me say? There are more faiths than yours, Uriah, and each faith has equally zealous defenders. How many generations of conflict until your message of peace turns to a crusade against those who do not share your beliefs? Where there are differences.
And this is where a lot of Christianity went wrong, right? Nowhere in the Bible are we told to conquer people, go out, take them out if they don't believe, stuff like that. See, the reason why in the Old Testament, you know, God had that is because in Genesis 6, right, they had the angels mating with women and creating this offspring that wasn't God prescribed, right? And if you start worshiping these gods and you start, coitusing them and start creating, all that, well, you're destroying the seed of the woman, right? Genesis 3:14 talks about how the seed of the woman will bruise the head of the seed of the serpent. So it talks about the seed of the serpent and then the seed of the woman, right? In my opinion, the seed of the serpent would be the beast of Revelation, and then which he's older, in my opinion. And if you want to see that, I have many videos on that. But and then Jesus, the seed of the woman, right? So what are you gonna do when you're told that the seed of the woman is gonna smash your head? You're gonna stop that seed from being born, right? So that is what was going on. That's why God was so harsh and saying, hey, if you go that way, I'm going to have to you, right? Basically. And that's why anyone who went outside that, that's what happened, right? But notice as soon as Jesus came onto the scene, a lot of things changed, right? You saw Christianity started to rise up and, the other gods and stuff going underground. And you see this, and Isaiah talks about how, the evil ones and stuff like that are turning the world upside down. Well, you see in Acts that the Pharisees are pointing at the Christians and they're turning the world upside down now. So they're taking that order that they were comfortable in and they're turning it upside down, right? So that's what is going on. That's why everything was so harsh back then, right? You hear the Old Testament God and the New Testament God. They're the same one, right? They're the same thing. It's just the work was completed. So there was no need for this harshness anymore, right? But anyways, I digress.
Humanity will find them. And these differences are so
This is
fundamentally
gonna be a
rooted
long
in
one.
you as others' beliefs are in others. There can be no resolution without conflict.
You find nothing but exceptions to my arguments, never any rules by which to measure them.
How can I find rules in an inherently hypocritical system? Your book has been rewritten, translated, and twisted to fit the needs of hundreds of anonymous authors for hundreds of years. The faith
To be honest, the Emperor's kind of right on that, especially with a lot of these new modern translations of the Bible. They're done by one group and they have to worry about copyright and all that. And so they switch things around, switch things up. Just go to Isaiah 34 in the KJV and then look at the modern translation of the Isaiah 34, right? And you'll see what I'm talking about. And the KJV, I stick with that as the main studying book, but I'm also okay with, having others. So that way you can see what others, translated it to. But you need to have that KJV because 49 different linguists and different groups came together and translated it instead of one that has a bias, right? But anyways, so in a way, he is kind of correct on that.
faith is eternal, but the story and morals are not.
One good thing is we got the Strong's Concordance, and we can look up what the actual Hebrew and Greek was.
One man hears his dead grandfather, and he is locked away in an asylum. But if he heard the voice of God, he would be venerated and might well become a saint. How is this a logical and rational system?
It is my faith. Respect my beliefs as I respect you.
Well, first off, a saint is someone who keeps the commandments of God. This is in Revelation, right? For this is the patience of the saints, those who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ, or the faith of Jesus Christ. That's what a saint is. It's a believer. That's all it is. But anyways, I digress.
Yours, despite your constant slights against my life's dedication.
Did you not say we should joust? Why does your faith require such protection? Is it not robust enough to withstand my questioning? No one else on this world enjoys such protection from scrutiny. So why should you and your faith be singled out for special treatment?
Why is
Yeah.
it that faith is being targeted for destruction? Perhaps there is enough truth behind my words that the Emperor, in all his wisdom, fears their holy power. Or is it because there are people too obstinate to accept that there may be something that science cannot quite explain? I have seen my God. I saw his face and heard his words in my soul.
Do not expect me or anyone else to give your experience credence, Uriah, despite what you think you saw. You may believe it to be real, but just because you believe something to be true does not make it so.
I saw what I saw. I heard what I heard. That day on the fields of...
But it doesn't necessarily mean that it isn't real. Or that it, or did I say that right? And it could be, what if the Emperor's wrong here? Just to, turn the chessboard around and stuff. I forgot where I was going with that, darn it. Anyways.
Frank has never lost its clarity. I
Gotta love
relive it in
ADHD.
every waking moment in which I am not occupied.
And where in Frank did this miraculous vision take place, priest?
On the killing field of Gadu.
You were at Gadu.
I was.
Will you tell me what happened?
I'll tell you what happened. But first, I need another drink. No, friend Apocalypsis, this is the good stuff. I wouldn't deign to drink this from a tumbler. Now we will drink from a glass.
Do you really need nice glasses in the church and stuff? You know what I mean? Nice everything, opulent. Yeah, that frustrates me a little bit.
Water of life.
Finally, spirits both you and I can believe in.
Give it a minute. Let the vapors build. It intensifies the flavor. Swirl it a little. See the slicks on the side of the glass? They are called tears. And since they are long and descending slowly, we know the drink is strong and full-bodied.
And how long must we wait?
Patience, friend Apocalypsis. This wine has sat for many
Why does he say
decades.
apocalypses?
It can sit for a few more minutes. Nose the drink.
He said he was
Feel
apocalypse.
the aromas and how they stimulate your senses. Allow yourself a moment. Let the scents awaken the memories of their origin.
May I ask a personal question while we wait?
Well, it depends on the question, doesn't it?
Why is it you carry a timepiece that doesn't function?
It is a family relic, you see. It has been with us since before even Old Night. No one knows when it broke, but as legend goes, it ticks before disaster strikes. I never believed it. Nor did my father. When I found it, however, it was a minute later than I always remembered it. Now it sits a minute from midnight. My father always jested that the day it struck midnight would be the beginning of the end. I've kept it for decades. Never once seen it budge. I check it often, as if it could warn me of danger. Maybe there is hope, eh?
A grim portent. You seem to surround yourself with grim beliefs, Uriah.
Perhaps. But let's not ruin this good wine with such dour thoughts. My story has not yet even begun. We've waited.
The Bible tells us to be careful of superstitions of men and stuff like that, right? So, like this clock and all that, and gotta be careful of that stuff.
Long enough. Drink, friend Apocalypsis, generously. Hang on to the taste before it is gone.
Ah, that's a flavor I have not had in a long time. I didn't think any remained.
It is an old bottle. One I rescued from the ruins of my parents' home.
You make a habit of keeping old alcohol around.
Aye, a throwback to my wild youth. I was fond of the drink. A little too much even, if you take my meaning.
I do. Many a great man has been brought low by such an addiction.
You know, I never really got into alcohol too much. I always hated the hangover afterwards. I could not stand it, man. But I did drink quite a bit, though, I would say, when I did drink.
You said you wanted to know of Gaduere?
If you are ready and willing to tell me of it, yes.
Willing, yes. Ready? Well, I suppose we will find out, eh?
Gadwari was a bloody day. It was hard on all who were there. I understand.
I may be old, and my eyes may not be what they once were, but I can still tell that you are far too young to know of Gaduere. You would not have even been born when that battle was fought.
Trust me, I know of Gadwari.
I should tell you a little of myself first. Who I was back then, and how I came to find God on the battlefield of Gaduere. If you have half a mind to hear it, anyway.
What is a story without its context? Of course. Say what you feel needs to be said.
I will say it kind of feels like a chaos god type thing, you know. I didn't notice that before, but it does kind of feel, he's on the battlefield, causing destruction, and then he sees, a vision or hears a god, right, or something like that. One has got to at least question, is this chaos messing with him? Because it's happened before, right? But anyways, and Lorgar, right, on his planet, they were very religious, and it ended up being a chaos god they were worshiping, or chaos gods, or I can't remember which. Anyways,
I was born in the town below this church, nearly 80 years ago. The youngest son of the local lord. My clan had come through the final years of Old Night with much of their wealth intact. They owned all the lands around these parts, from this very mountain all the way to the mainland bridge. I wish I could say I was treated badly as a child, to give reason for why I turned out the way I did. I cannot. I was indulged and became something of a spoiled brat, given to drinking, carousing, and bouts of petulance. Looking back, I realize what a little shit
he
I
drank
was.
those quick.
But of course, it's a lot of
Dang.
work to look at themselves in their youth and realize too late all the mistakes they made and regrets they carry. Anyway, I decided in
Would
the
you
adolescent
save some of
fires
those, man?
rebellion that I was going to travel the world and see whatever free corners of it remained in the wake of the Emperor's conquest. So much of the world had been brought under his sway, but I was determined to find one last patch of land that wasn't yet under the heel of his thunderbolt and lightning armies.
You make it sound like the Emperor was a tyrant. He ended the wars that were destroying the planet and defeated dozens of tyrants and despots. Without his armies, mankind would have descended into anarchy and destroyed itself within generations.
He still is a tyrant. Perhaps humanity would have been better off that way, rather than under the shadow of his accursed eagle. Maybe the universe decided we'd had our chance, that our time was up.
Nonsense.
What's kind of crazy, about the two-headed eagle, and you see this in a lot of empires and stuff like that, right? Second Esdras talks about this three-headed eagle, and now I've had my opinions on it, but I think I'm starting to change my opinion on it. But we won't get into that. I'll have to bring that up in a different video or something. But it talks about this three-headed eagle, and then one of the heads disappears, and it becomes this two-headed eagle. But what's interesting, you see with these two-headed eagle empire, or these pictures of these two-headed eagles, there's a crown right where that third head is missing. So that's very interesting. And it is kind of like a Vatican crown. But we won't get into that. Now, I believe, at least in my opinion, that's Satan, but we won't get into that. And I'm not sure just yet. But there is a good theory out there on that. It's different than mine.
The universe cares not a whit for our actions or us. Our fate is wrought by our hands, and no others.
A philosophical point we will no doubt return to.
This is going to be a
But I was
long.
telling you of my youth.
I apologize.
But of course, please, continue.
Thank you. Well, after I announced my intention to travel the world, my father was good enough to grant me a generous stipend and a retinue of soldiers to protect me on my journeys. I left that very day and crossed the Silver Bridge 4 days later, traveling across a land recovering from war, which was growing fat on the labors decreed by the Emperor. Hammers beat out plates of armor, blackened factories churned out weapons, and entire towns of seamstresses created new uniforms for his armies. I crossed to Europa and cruised my way across the continent, seeing the eagle-stamped banner everywhere I went. In every town and city, I saw people giving thanks to the Emperor and his mighty thunder giants. But I'll be damned if any of it was genuine. It was like they were going through the motions, because they knew it was dangerous not to. I'd seen the thunder giants as a child, but never in the wake of a conquest. Never quite seen the reality of them before that point. I was drunk and whoring my way down the Tali Peninsula when I came across a garrison of the Emperor's super soldiers at a ruined cliff-top fortress. My damned romantic rebellious soul couldn't help but try and bait the giants. I called them...
Oh, also, I'm going to put the credits to the composer who did the music for this as well. So that'll be in the description if you want to check that out.
many names. Freak, slave, the minor demons of a greater devil. I even told them the Emperor's only goal was to enslave all of the human race to his own towering ego. After having seen them battle in the fields of Frank, I shuddered to think of the fear I was in then. I thought I was being clever. In my own stupor, I convinced myself I was a hero. Looking back, I would never even have passed as a martyr. Eventually, one of the giants broke rank and approached me. I was monumentally drunk. I felt invincible as only a drunk and a fool could. This warrior was huge, far larger than any human I had ever seen. His entire body was encased in heavy, powered armor that enclosed his chest and arms. The sheer power of each soldier was never made clearer to me than when that giant came over to me and lifted me up, tearing my shirt and upsetting me greatly. I kicked at his armor and beat my fists into bloody pulps against his chest.
You know, it's pretty common, you know, like you see like Goliath, he's like 9 to 13 feet tall, depending on who you talk to. And you see these giants, right? That's common throughout the whole Israel's going into the promised land thing, right? And you see them, they're battling all these giants, the Zamzumines, you know, Amalekites, all this stuff, and you'll see that there's giants in there, right? And Genesis 6 talks about how, you know, the sons of God came down, saw that the daughters of men were fair, mated with them, they created the giants, and it says these were the men of old, men of renown, right? And they're giant, so very interesting.
But he just laughed at me. I screamed at him to let me go, and he didn't.
And the Bible's not the only one who talks about these guys, right? Native American tribes talk about the giants. There's African tribes who talk about these giants, right? And red hair and white. And the Native Americans talk about red hair and white giants. So, very interesting.
Just that.
People
Telling
who
me to shut my mouth.
And these are people who had no contact with each other, but yet are talking about the same stuff. You can go look that up too if you want.
Before tossing me off the cliff and into the sea. By the time I'd climbed the great steps back up into the village, they were gone. And I was left with just myself and a hatred greater than I had ever known. Stupid, really.
And real quick, when the Israelites, right, they had the 12 spies who were to go into the land to check it out, right? What did they say, right? We were like grasshoppers in their sight. So picture a little grasshopper compared to you. That's how the Israelites were to these giants, these people that were in the land, right? But anyways.
I was asking for it, and it was only a matter of time until someone put me in my place.
And after Tali?
Here and there. I've forgotten a lot of those years, truth be told. I was drunk most of my waking hours. I know I took a sand skimmer across the Mediterranean wastes, and traversed the wastelands of the North African conclaves that Shankal reduced to an ashen desert. All I found were settlements that were busy paying homage to the Emperor. So I carried onwards, far into the east, to see the ruins of Ursh and the fallen bastions of Nath and Doom. Even there, however, in places so far away as to be the most desolate and remote corners of the world, I still found those who gave thanks to the Emperor and his gene-engineered warriors. I couldn't understand it. Didn't these people know they just exchanged one tyrant?
That's who the Nephilim were. They were gene-enhanced humans and stuff like that, basically.
For another?
And animals were done with that in Jasher Chapter 4 as well.
Humanity was on the brink of extinction. I cannot convey this point any more clearly. Without unity, and without the Emperor, there would be no human race. I cannot believe that you do not see that.
Oh, I see it all right. I see that very clearly. The devilish rogue did not, however. I was young and full of the fires of youth that see any form of control as oppression. Though they don't appreciate it, it is the function of the youth to push at the boundaries of the previous generation, to poke and prod and establish their own rules. I was no different from any other youth. Well, perhaps a little.
So you'd traveled the world, and hadn't found any corner of it that hadn't sworn allegiance to the Emperor. Where did you go next?
I returned home for a spell, bearing gifts I'd mostly stolen, and then set off again. But this time I went out as a soldier of fortune instead of a tourist. I'd heard rumors of unrest in the land of the Frank, and fancied myself a renowned war hero. The Frank were a fractious people, even before the days of unity, and were never ones to bow to invaders, even the ones who posed as benign. Once I reached the continent, I had heard of Havelek de Gros and the Battle of Averroy, and rode straight for the town.
Avelroy, a town poisoned by the bitterness of a madman whose meager skill fell far short of his ambition.
Now, that much is obvious. Back then, the story was that Havelek was found wrongly accused of the brutal murder of the woman the Emperor appointed as governor. He was set to be shot by a firing squad when his brothers and friends attacked the local army units running the execution. The soldiers were torn to shreds, and the death of a few locals in the fighting turned a small-scale riot into open rebellion. It got ugly faster than the town had time to think what they were doing. But by then, it was too late. Unfortunately for everyone, Havelek was a gifted orator, and fanned the flames of the townfolk's ire at the Emperor's rule. Within the hour, a hastily formed militia had stormed the local army headquarters and seized the weapons within. None of the soldiers survived.
You are aware that Havelek did assault and murder the woman?
I learned that later, yes. By then it was far too late to do anything about it. By the time I reached Averroy, full of piss and vinegar for the coming fight, Havelek had rallied a number of the local townships to his cause and amassed quite an army. It was magnificent, friend Apocalypsis, for it had been everything I had so desperately searched for. Icons of the Emperor being torn down, colorful buntings hanging from every window, bands playing in the streets constantly.
As they say, almost every revolution becomes an even better tyrant. I guess not every revolution, but I would say most of them. There's always a, let's just say, a planned person to rule, right? And it always ends up worse. But anyways.
While Havelek and all
most
of
the
us,
time,
soldiers, marched up and down the town. I swear it felt like we were an army of devilish, daring youths. We should have been training. We should have prepared. But our courage was buoyed up by the festivities, and more towns rose up against the Emperor's rule by the day. Within the week, we had amassed an army of nearly 40,000 strong. Truly, it seemed, I had found my glorious rebellion I had so desperately craved. It was heroic and courageous and dangerous, and it spoke to my romanticism for the heroic freedom fighters of old. We were absolutely sure that we would be the spark that would light the fires of rebellion all across the world and see the autocrat tumbled from his self-imposed rule. Then we heard that the Thunderbolt and Lightning armies were marching from the east, and then we set off in grand procession, making all due haste. Havelek leading us from Averoy was a joyous day. I'll never forget it. The laughter, the kisses from the girls, and the spirit of our shared brotherhood carried us off as we marched to battle.
Yay!
But a week of marching, we reached Gadu and set up our defenses atop a line of hills directly in the path of our enemies. We had all thought ourselves tactical geniuses, holding this strategically advantageous position. Had we any training and discipline, it might have made a difference. We held the high ground, and both of our flanks were anchored on strong positions. On the left were the ruins of the Ganduere bastion. On the right, the desolate marshes through which nothing could pass.
You must have known it was madness to engage the
Looks a lot like Trench Crusade almost. Anyways, sorry.
Emperor's armies? I mean, you had no hope of defeating them. His warriors were bred for battle and spent every waking moment in combat training.
Perhaps we knew. Maybe we didn't want to think about it. We were so full of hope, of optimism, we wouldn't allow ourselves to even consider defeat. When the Emperor's armies came into sight, we were nearly 50,000 strong, and we faced
Yep, that'll do it. Have medieval helmets. That'll help.
an army estimated at a mere 5,000. It was hard not to feel that we could win the day, especially with Havelek riding up and down and firing our blood. His brother tried to calm him, but it was far too late. Eventually, maybe a kilometer from our position, the Giants halted their advance. We should have waited too. Instead of letting the spirit of the moment die, we charged down the hillside like mad, glorious fools, screaming war cries and waving swords, pistols, and rifles over our heads. It was maybe 6 or 7 ranks deep, and we only covered half the distance before the Giants shouldered their weapons and opened fire.
Kablooey.
By God, the noise. I'll never forget it. The first volley was thunder that ripped down the line, and our first 5 ranks were cut down to a man before they could even scream. Each of their bullets was a small bomb that ripped limbs from bodies and burst men open from the inside like wet sacks. I turned to shout,
Well, welcome to the bolters. Gotta love them bolt guns that explode. Yeah, I don't see why they thought they had a chance, but it is what it is, right? That's rebellions, I guess.
I was struck in the back of the head and fell forward into the ruptured body of another man. Rolling over, I felt
I
the
should
back
say
of my
rebellions
head and
in
realized
the
I had
Warhammer
been hit.
40k universe.
Shrapnel or some fragment, I figured. I could feel myself losing blood, weakening by the moment. Now the initial shock of the first few seconds had passed. The screaming began. The charge had ground to a halt, and now the men and women were milling around in confusion and fear. As reality finally dawned on them, and they understood the magnitude of what Havelek had done. Now, the Thunder Warriors took their turn to charge. They broke into a run, and terror trembled beneath their feet. Most of those who had fallen but survived their volley were crushed beneath a giant metal boot. They all were unsheathing their swords with serrated edges and motorized blades. I'll never forget the sound of it all. The roar out of a nightmare it was. We had been defeated in the opening volley, but these warriors were without mercy. Havelek had somehow survived the initial barrage with only superficial wounds. And as I lay on my back dying, I watched him stare, dumbfounded, as the leading Thunder Warrior cleaved him in two with a single swing of his chain blade. Looking back at Havelek's army, I saw my terror mirrored on the face of every man and woman left, who were all begging for mercy, throwing down their weapons, trying to surrender, but the slaughter continued, heedless of their perils. They marched.
The Thunder Warriors, man, they were unstable. And they were all about war. So, yeah, have fun.
Right up to them and hacked
Don't mean
into
to
them
laugh,
without
but
mercy. All those people were cut apart
they were
so
nuts.
quickly and brutalized with such economy of force. I couldn't believe so many people could die in so short a time. It was not the glorious battle I had dreamed of.
So if you don't know, the Thunder Warriors were the precursors to the Space Marines, as you see in the Warhammer 40k, or the 40th millennium, I should say, and during the Horus Heresy and stuff.
It was mechanized butchery. If I could have ran, I would have. And I'm not ashamed to say I laid there weeping, listening to the awful sound of people dying, and the wet sound of flesh being shorn from bodies, and the stench of voided bowels and open bellies, until the mercy of darkness overcame me. When I woke, surprised I'd still lived, it was dark. In the distance, I heard the victory chants of the Thunder Warriors drifting across the fields, along with the smoke of victory pyres. Avalek's army had been destroyed. Not routed, not put to flight, destroyed.
That's
In
a
less
lot.
than an hour, 50,000 men and women had been killed. I never learned of any other survivors. Weak, laying in
50,000,
a field
dang, I
of
didn't know
human
that.
parts, I began to weep once more. I was in agony, bleeding to death and thinking how absolutely pointless my life
That smell would be atrocious. Holy cow.
had been. The heartache and ruin I'd visited upon others in my reckless pursuit of hedonism and self-interest. I wept for my family and myself. And that was when I realized I wasn't alone.
Who was with you?
The power of the divine. I opened my eyes and saw a golden face above me. A face of such radiance and perfection that my tears were no longer shed for my self-pity, but for
I forgot about this part.
light radiated from the figure, and I averted my eyes for fear I'd be blinded. I had been in pain, yes, but now that pain was gone, and I knew I was seeing the face of the divine. I could not describe that face to you, not with all the poetic imagery in the world at my disposal.
That's right, I forgot about this. I'm guessing that's the Emperor, right? Or something like that. Oh boy.
But it was the most exquisite thing I had ever seen. I felt myself lifted up and thought this was the end. And then the face spoke, and I knew I was destined to live.
What did this face say to you?
Why do you deny me? Accept me, and you will know that I am the only truth and the only way.
Did you reply?
I couldn't. To utter any words would have been base. In any case, my tongue was quite stilled by the awesome vision of God.
What made you think it was God? You were a dying man on a battlefield, surrounded by your dead comrades, and you were having an epiphany about the futility of the life you had led. Think back, priest. Surely there is another explanation?
I need no other explanation. You may be wise in many things, Apocalypsis, but you cannot know what
Again, that's why you test the spirits, right? But anyways.
goes on in my own mind. I heard the voice of God and saw his face. Does the perception of events truly matter if the results are singular? I was borne up and set into a deep slumber. And when I awoke, my wounds
I'm
were
gonna find
healed.
that.
A piece of bone had been embedded in my skull, nearly a centimeter away from severing my spinal cord. When I rose, I searched for fellow survivors. I was alone. I decided to return to the land of my birth, but when I returned, I found my family home in ruins. The townsfolk told me Scandian raiders from the north had come to plunder my family's wealth.
Okay, real quick. 1 John 4:1. Beloved, Believe not every spirit, but try the spirits whether they are of God, because many false prophets are gone out into the world. Right? This goes for anybody, right? An entity that appears to you, or a pastor, or a YouTuber like me, whatever, right? Put them to the test and get the information yourself. But anyways. Okay, sorry about that.
So they killed my brother and tortured my parents and sisters in an attempt to make my father give up the family treasures. My father had a weak heart and died before they could learn his secrets. I found my home in ruins and my family as bleached cadavers. There were no amends to be made at home. All I had to remember them by was their wealth, good wine, and this damned watch.
I am sorrowed by your loss.
Am I remembering this wrong? But wasn't like the last thought of the emperor was this guy of the last, or that was in this last church? Maybe I'm remembering that wrong, but I kind of remember something to that extent, or maybe I just saw something about it. But I kind of remember something to where the last thought was this guy here, the priest here. But anyways, let me know in the comments.
If it is any consolation, the Scandians would not accept unity and were wiped out near 3 decades ago.
I know, but I do not revel in death anymore. The men who killed my family will have been judged by God, and that is justice enough for me.
That is noble of you.
I took those few keepsakes from the ruins and made my way to the nearest settlement, thinking I'd
I guess technically speaking, he might be right on that. If it's the emperor who he's talking about.
get blind drunk and tried to figure out what to do with my life. Halfway there, I met an old priest in need of help, in desperate search of the next caretaker of the Folly. I knew I had found my purpose. I had spent my entire life until then living for myself, but when I saw the spire of that church, I knew that God had a purpose for me. I should have died at Gadu, but I was saved for a reason.
And what was the reason?
To serve God, to bring his words to the people, to do good where others would not, to be a beacon in the coming dark.
And that's what you've been doing here?
That is what...
And to pray to Osiris's pee-pee. Sorry, I don't mean to joke about it, but it's essentially what he's doing. That's what that rock was. It was an obelisk. But anyways.
What I've been trying to do, but the Emperor's promulgators traverse the globe with his message of denouncing the supernatural and criminalizing the devout. I assume that is why you are here, and why none of my congregation have come here tonight.
You would be correct. In a manner of speaking, I have come to try and convince you of the error of your ways. To learn of you and to show you that there is no need for any divine powers to guide humanity. This is the last church on Terra. And
well, to be honest, he kind of has, quote unquote, right, divine powers according, to the Warhammer 40k universe, right? He's a perpetual, he's immortal. So if you don't know, the Emperor is what is called a perpetual, which means he's basically immortal. And he's very powerful. He's got superpowers and stuff like that, right? So he's kind of... Anyways. You get what I'm saying.
It falls to me
Lost
to
my
offer you
track
this
of thought.
chance to embrace the new way willingly.
ADHD sucks, let me tell you.
There is no or, my dear priest. Come. Let us go back out into the church as we talk. I want to teach you of all that belief in gods has done.
That reminds me, what is it, Scary Movie 2, where the guy's got the little hand and he's messing with the turkey. That's what that reminded me of.
For humanity down the ages. The bloodshed, the horror, and the persecution.
Oh boy.
I will tell you of this, and you will see how damaging such belief is.
And then, You will go on your way, friend Apocalypsis?
It is my sincerest hope that we will go together. You know of gene breeding?
Aye. Very little is not gene-bred these days.
And you have heard of the once great city of Zoser in the Nordafric conclaves?
Yes, I have been to Zoser. At least I saw what my guide told me were its ruins.
True. Not much is left. Anyway, the scientists of Zoser sought to end a great famine that was sweeping the Nordafric conclaves through gene-breeding animals that would grow more quickly and more easily in their harsh climate.
This is exactly what was happening in Noah's day. You'll see in the book of Enoch, it talks about how they basically manipulated genetically modified food. They modified the animals. They Jasher chapter 4 talks about how they taught men to mix one species with the other. And this is what was going on. That's why, when God tells Israel to end everything, right? Male, children, the food, everything, right? He says, do not leave a single thing, right? It's because it's these Nephilim entities and the food was being genetically modified, right? Because God said a horse will made after a horse, and food will be after, corn will be after corn and not have any kind of other DNA within it, right? So that's why God is against this, because it's not his creation, right? They're trying to terraform the earth or Satan, right, is trying to terraform the earth into his image, right? So that is what's going on, or at least in Genesis 6 and all that. And that's why the flood happened, right? Because of all this genetic manipulation. It wasn't just because of sin. It's because they were terraforming the earth, basically.
When one of the local cults caught wind of the gene breeding, they saw it as an affront to their god.
And what's interesting is it says that in the days of Noah, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. What was going on? Genetic manipulation and all that, right? And what do we have now? Genetic manipulation of our food and all that. There's other things of that, like let's just say it has to do with the embryo. If you've seen my stuff, just read First Enoch 60, and where it talks about the last guy. I can't remember his name, but in it talks about the embryo. Let's just say of it. All of a sudden, that's coming back. But anyways, we won't get into that.
They were very much against the modification of genetics because they thought that their god had designed them as they were, and it was a sin to meddle in such things. This cult, the Zozerites, saw the lead scientist, an Apashtar, as the next embodiment of evil, seeking to defile all the people by feeding them the embodiment of sin. They went on a rampage, stabbing and clubbing any Apashtar they could find. Of course, the Apashtar retaliated, and rioting spread throughout the city and left close to 1,000 people dead. They did not again try to gene breed new farm stock, and untold thousands more died to the famine.
Is there a point to that story?
Absolutely. It typifies religion and tells a universal tale of religious behavior that has been reoccurring since the beginning of human history.
Well, it sounds good and all, but what is that food going to do to you, right? You think about all the food we have nowadays, and how it's sprayed and genetically modified and all that. What is it doing to you? Yeah, it's nourishing you, sure, but it's also doing something else. Is it changing you, right? But anyways, I digress.
Religion actively impedes forward progress by producing stubborn people who fear advancement.
And I'm not saying, growing stuff in a scientific way without genetic manipulation, right, is good. I mean, you could say, have a pesticide within it, put into it, stuff like that, but you're starting to get into genetic modification and something that isn't natural going into your body, right? and look at all the stuff that's going on. But I'll be quiet on that.
A far-fetched example, friend Apocalypsis. One freakish story cannot serve as proof of theory that all belief in the divine is a bad thing. Why don't you tell the story of the time a church organized a program to help the poor and the sick and the dying? Why do you not tell a story of when faith and religion gave a community the strength to stick together and help each other through Old Night? Through faith comes character, and through our...
If they don't have 40,000 different denominations and have one, and that's the way it should be, right? But when you have 40,000 different denominations, you know, one, we have the truth. No, we have the truth. And no, in reality, they all have a form of the truth, right? Because in my opinion, God gave everybody the piece to the puzzle. But anyways, we should all be, you know, as Christians, followers of Jesus Christ. Just one, right? But anyways, I
By
digress.
character, there is moral strength. Without such guidance, the world would descend into anarchy.
A secular government with strict laws and programs could accomplish all that you have listed without creating stubbornness or creating a dependability on a church that would...
Because that has definitely worked out. But I'm not going to sit here and act like religious, you know, like church and state crap has worked either, right? There shouldn't be church and state. But anyways,
impose further
basically secular government and the church mixing together.
Taxes upon the poor and make waste of otherwise productive time. The idea...
Because we saw that with the English church, right? And why the Puritans, mostly Puritans, came to America, right? And yes, other pilgrims were there too, but mostly they were Puritans getting sick and tired of having to go through the English church for everything.
The idea that the church is a moral compass just isn't true. Where the church is strong, it causes cruelty. Intense belief produces intense hostility. Only when faith loses its force can a society hope to become humane and progress.
I don't believe that. My holy book gives us...
Yeah, I tell that to the Soviets. Let's tell that to the World War II bad guys, right? I mean, many examples, but anyways. But I understand where he's going with it. But just because it's secular doesn't mean it's going to go well, right? That it's going to be moral and stuff like that. Because it never is. You get secular government because there's no boundaries, right? You can do anything with no repercussions, right? That's what Stalin, that's what he thought. Mao, that's what he thought, right? There's no repercussions. But in my opinion, you do need some boundaries. You need a guide thing, or else you could go off the rails. I'm a prime example of that, right? I thought I could do anything, and I ended up, you know, being a loser, would you say? But anyways.
Instructions on how to live a good life. It has lessons humanity needs. I have benefited greatly, as have the people in the town below.
Are you sure? I have read your holy book, and much of it is bloody and vengeful. I suspect an outside spectator would view the people on those pages.
Now, a lot of people will say, like, the Bible's that way, right? But again, if you don't understand Genesis 6, you do not understand the Bible, right? Because you'll see the Amalekites, they had giants in them, these angel human offspring, and human whatever offspring and stuff like that, right? That isn't fully human. And they were basically coming from the seed of the serpent, right? Like I said, Genesis 3:14, right? The seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. But anyways.
Ages, not as exemplars of proper behavior.
And one thing too is that when Israel went into the lands and God told him to destroy this group or whatever, he also just said, take the spoils of war and leave these group people free, right? He didn't say destroy them all, because they were probably all human. But the ones he's told to destroy everything, which is like a quarantine, right, were these genetically modified humans and stuff like that.
But terrifying examples of corrupt morals.
You are missing the point, Apocalypsis. Much of the text is not meant to be taken literally. It is symbolic or allegorical.
That is exactly my point. You priests pick and choose which bits of your book to take literally and which...
See, in my opinion, you should take the Bible literally, right? Until it says that this is a symbol. Now, one thing that I've gotten before, right, is that, well, if you believe the Bible is literal, then you believe in slavery and all that. But first off, you'll see that that it says the foreigner and the natural-born Israelite, whatever, have one law. A slave is a second-class citizen, right? Well, if the foreigner and all that, and the slave and all that have the same law as the natural-born Israelite does, that means they're not a slave. That means they have the same rights as the Israelites. That's the difference, right? Now, was it indentured servitude? Did they go out and buy servants? Yes, right? But they weren't slaves. They were beholden to the Ten Commandments, right? Just like the natural-born Israel was. But anyways.
To read is symbolic. And that is a personal matter, not a divine one.
I'll look that up for you.
You may be pure and noble, Uriah, but all too often, a priest is a man who is cruel and purely seeking personal gain. Religion has no place in a fair and just society. In ages past, a frightening number of people took these holy books absolutely literally, sowing untold misery and death because they truly believed the words they read. The history of religion is a horror story, Uriah. And if you doubt...
All right. So, real quick. So this is Exodus 12:49. One law shall be to him that is homeborn, and unto the stranger that sojourneth among you. Let me see if I can find... Let me get a better thing for it so I can see the whole thing.
Look to the past and see what humanity has done in the name of their gods over the millennia. In ancient times, ritual sacrifices were commonplace. To appease their vile gods, priests drowned women and children in sacred wells and cut the heart out of their slaves and prisoners. They would drive a pile through a maiden's body to pacify a non-existent creature.
You cannot seriously compare my religion to such barbarism. You describe ignorant savagery, not religion as I would name it.
Can't I? It was never uncommon for religions founded in this region of the world to use their faith to justify conquest without mercy. The rich desired more power, but the peasantry would not fight for their kings and their lords just to further the interest of those who ruled them so cruelly. The lords knew this. They guised their political objectives with religious significance by the just...
All right, and here's another one. Numbers 15:16. One law and one manner shall be for you and for the stranger that sojourneth among you. That includes an indentured servitude, right? And you'll see in the Ten Commandments that on the Sabbath, that the bondsman and the servant and all that got to take a day off as well, because they were beholden to the same law that the natural-born Jew was, right? Or Israelite, I should say. Not all of them were Jewish, which means from the tribe of Judah. But anyways, so...
and marvelous judgment of
this
God,
is going to be a long
and
one, guys. I
fought
apologize.
fervently for a cause with no merit. Extremism bred extremism, and the retaliation was swift, now that war had been initiated on religious pretexts.
Now, he is right about that, though, right? There is extremism in every religion if you let it. If you let men, right, interpret it for you, that have misguided means or are trying to mislead you anyways. But anyways.
The conflicts escalated, and the battling continued. until little was left but fields littered with the bones of the foolish and the deceived.
And if a Christian is saying that we need to take over, because there are some of them that they're out there, says we need to take over the government, over this, and over that, whatever, just tell them, book, chapter, verse, please. Show me where that is in the Bible. That's all you got to say.
But sorrow or remorse was never tolerated for such a thing, as the Crusade was God's will, after all.
No, it was not. No, it was not. That was the will of men, right? And these institutions, right? This is why I say religion puts an institution between you and God, right? It was these institutions that wanted to do crusades, right? That they thought if they had Jerusalem, they would rule the world, right? Basically is why they did that. And there's also occult reasons for that too, as well, believe it or not. Especially with the Templars, but we won't get into that. They were very occultic, by the way.
This is ancient history. As you say, the nobles were bent on furthering their own interests. They used religion as an excuse, but in their greed they would have committed these atrocities one way or another. You cannot vouchsafe the truth of events so lost in the mists of time.
I would agree with you, had they not repeated the act nearly a century later. Warriors laid siege to the sect stronghold in ancient...
Again, book, chapter, verse, right? He's not bringing up anything in the Bible that says to do this, right? He's bringing up these acts of men.
And when the city fell, the generals asked their leader how they might tell the faithful from the traitors among the captives. The leader, who followed his God, ordered the warriors to kill them all. God will know his own. 20,000 men, women, and children were lost to faith that day.
Book, chapter, verse, but anyways.
Of course, for fear that any may escape, an organization was given absolute power over the people, with its sole purpose to hunt down those who ran. They brought about hysteria and tortured any they so pleased. They did not stop once all their enemies were hunted down and killed either. They too had convinced themselves of their holiness. They exterminated whole towns on the merest suspicion of witchcraft or treachery. When it was all said and done, near 100,000 were dead. Most of them were innocent.
If you'll allow me, I shall turn your logic back upon you, Apocalypsis. Had it been a secular government that decided they required more land and riches, do you truly believe they would have decided against it for no reason other than that there was no divine justification? Look back upon your great knowledge of history. Do you truly not recall any secular government that drove itself mad with suspicion of treachery and created a state ruled by surveillance and torture? You chop apart history, take what you so desire, and insist I behold the bloody remains. Humans are flawed, and religion is more often a convenient scapegoat than a corrupting force.
If you believe that, then you have been shut away in this church for far too long, priest. All the dictators deposed through unification were mass-murdering ethnarchs who killed millions in their constant warring, burning away all hope of progress. Cardinal Tang's pogroms and death camps saw millions dead in the Indonesia bloc. He died but 30 years ago and claimed his entire life had been served in the name of a greater power.
You fixate on the blood and death and forget all the good that can be achieved through faith.
Uriah, you only see religion for what it can be. I am seeing it for what it most always is. Savagery pervades our world, and it is sustained by ignorance and crude belief. It is true that before the descent of Old Night, religion had lost its power over the people. But like the worst kind of poison, it lingered and fostered division amongst those who endured. Without belief, divisions blur over generations.
Yep, that's what happens when you let it get to 40,000 right? Different denominations and different sects and all that, or different sections of the faith. Didn't say that word, YouTube, but yeah. I mean, religion, he is right, does divide. But if you have a relationship with God, right, with Him, and you read it yourself, and you stop relying on men and other people's interpretations and stuff like that. Now, of course, you got to know that you are getting the truth, right, and you have it the right way, I guess, per se, or at least look at the original language of it and all that. And you'll see, that this book or whatever is actually pretty good, pretty accurate. I mean, like I said, the Book of Enoch literally says, and I'll look that up for you here too, that the sun or the moon gets its light from the sun. No other, no other religion was saying that at that time, right? But anyways, I'll find that for you.
Generations mingle, intermarry, and forget ancient wounds. It is only belief in gods and divine entities that keep them alien to one another. And anything that divides people breeds inhumanity and cruelty. Religion is the canker in mankind's heart that serves such an ugly purpose.
I have heard all that you have had to say, friend Apocalypsis, and I have finally heard enough. Yes, people have done terrible things to one another in the name of their gods, but they have done terrible things regardless of the course of their beliefs. An acceptance of gods and an afterlife is a vital part of what makes us who we are. If you take that away from humanity, what do you suggest takes its place?
All right, here it is. So this is 1 Enoch chapter 78. So, and Uriel, almost close to Uriah, showed me another law. When light is transferred to the moon, and on which side it is transferred to her by the sun, during all the period during which the moon is growing in her light, she is transferring it to herself when opposite to the sun during 14 days. It is accomplished in heaven, and when she is illumined throughout, her light is accomplished full in heaven. Very interesting, because no other religion or anything was saying that at that time, right? But anyways,
In my many
how did
years
he know
as a
that?
priest, I have ministered to many dying people, and the emotional benefit of religion's power to console the wounded and the dying, as well as those left behind, cannot be underestimated.
There is a flaw in your logic, priest. Religion's power to console gives it no credence or validity. It might be a comfort to a dying man to believe that he will go to some bountiful paradise of endless joy. But even if he dies with a wonderful smile on his face, it means nothing in the grand scheme of things.
By the way, that paradise is the earth. I know a lot of people think that we're going to be going up to heaven or whatever, but what does it say in Jesus' prayer, right? Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And you'll see that when heaven comes down to earth, right? But anyways,
Better
this is going to be
less
long.
would die
I'm sorry, guys.
due to the removal of religion than each zealot die with a smile on their face.
Maybe, but when my time comes, I will die with God's name on my lips.
Are you afraid to die, Uriah?
No,
Truly?
truly. I have my share of sins, but I've spent the greater part of my life in the service of my God.
And real quick, so this is Genesis 10:25. Unto Eber were born two sons. The name was Peleg, for in his days was the earth divided, and his brother name was Joktan. And that earth, you'll see, was the earth. This is the Strong's word eretz, which means earth, land. Means to firm the earth at large, or common country, earth, field, ground, land, ex natans, whatever, way, wilderness, or world. So it's saying the earth was divided, right? So is that saying there was a Pangea? Now, there is difference between what science says and what this says, because this says there were people on the earth. Science says there wasn't. So who's telling the truth, right? But anyways, very interesting.
And I believe I have served him faithfully.
I don't understand why the
why is it that
church,
when you go to these people who are...
I don't understand why the church doesn't bring that up at all. Because that's where science and the Bible agree on, but anyways.
dying and clinging to their beliefs that they don't welcome the end of their life. Surely, the gathered family and friends should be of good cheer and celebrate their relatives' passing. After all, if eternal paradise awaits us, why are they not filled with gleeful anticipation? Could it be that, in their heart of hearts, they don't really believe it?
Are you ever excited to have a loved one move on or leave in search of something greater? Are you ever excited to leave your family and friends in search of a better life? Even if it is for the best, are you delighted to leave all that you know to be thrust into the unknown? No one is. Life is a gift, and our chance to make ourselves into someone before our time in the afterlife. Who would give that up willingly? If you cannot see that plainly, then you are a fool. The Lord of mankind is the light in the way, and all his actions are for the benefit of mankind, which is his people. So it is taught in the holy words of our order, and above all
There
things,
is
that God
no
will
one
protect-
to hear you.
I don't care what you say anymore. You have come here to do what you feel you need to do, and I'll not buttress your ego and self-righteousness by playing along any longer. You listen to my words, but hear nothing. End the charade.
As you wish. No more games.
Yep. There it is.
You.
Now do you understand the futility of what you do here?
You are the Emperor.
I am. It is time to go, Uriah.
Go? Go where? There is nowhere else for me in this godless world of yours.
Of course there is. Embrace the new way and be part of something incredible. A world and a time where we stand on the brink of achieving everything we ever dreamed.
Not really. Not at all.
Verona's work was never meant for darkness. Only in the light can it achieve its full potential. Humanity is the same. And only when the suffocating shadows of a religion that teaches us not to question is gone from this world, will we see its true, radiating brilliance.
And if you notice, that's not what the Bible says, right? You saw it. It said, test the spirits to see if it be from God and stuff like that, right? To not believe everything that you hear. And then, I'll bring it up here in a second.
I will miss this place.
In time, I will build an imperium of such grandeur and magnificence that this will seem like a pauper's hovel. Now, let us be on our way.
Okay. So before this happens, real quick. So this is from the words of Jesus here. Matthew 24:5. Right. So, and Jesus answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying they're coming in the name of Jesus, saying that I am the Christ. They're saying Jesus is the Messiah, and shall deceive many. So that's talking a lot of pastors and people who come in and say Jesus is the Messiah, but they're leading people to destruction, right? And that's why Jesus' first words there is saying, take heed that no man deceive you. Okay. If that wasn't the case, right, he wouldn't have said that if he didn't want you to question things, right?
How can you do this? You say you stand for reason and the advancement of understanding, but here you are destroying a repository of knowledge.
Some things are best forgotten.
I hope you have foreseen the consequences of a world bereft of religion.
I have. It is my dream. An imperium of man that exists without recourse to gods and the supernatural. A united galaxy with terror at its heart.
A united galaxy?
Indeed. Soon enough, unity will be achieved on Terra. It is time to reclaim humanity's lost empire among the stars.
In a way, you kind of have to understand where the Emperor is coming from, right? He's trying to get rid of the chaos, the warp and stuff like that in the chaos gods. So in a way, you can kind of understand where he's coming from in this. But anyways, in a way, he is actually kind of being a tyrant, right? But let's be honest here. There are church figures who were tyrants as well, and who killed people who were Christians, right? And these were church leaders and stuff, right? So, again, it's what Jesus said. Make sure that no man deceives you.
With you at its head, I presume.
Of course. Nothing of such grand scale can be achieved without a singular vision at its heart. Least of all, the reconquest of the galaxy. There is a place for you at my side, Uriah. You are noble and your heart is true. We have need of iterators who would spread my imperial truth across the stars to all those planets without guidance.
I can submit to no imperial truth. My entire life has been altered by, at best, a misunderstanding. At worst, my life has been spent following a lie. But you know what? It doesn't matter that my life has been one massive falsehood. I came here with my heart open and emptied by grief.
There's the
obelisk. My God had entered my soul and filled me with love. My devotion was my salvation, and I have spread a doctrine of love and forgiveness. No amount of words and tricks may change that.
See the top of that? That's
Even
an
now,
obelisk.
Despite this revelation, my heart is filled with love. There is no resentment in my heart. What makes faith so powerful, Emperor, is that it requires no proof. Belief is enough.
I feared such a thing. I wish you would join my great crusade, Uriah. Soon I shall expand my Imperium to the furthest corners of the galaxy, with all my sons beside me. I need men like you. You make a virtue of commitment and purity.
Did you not just speak to me of the horror of the Crusades? And what evil men do in the name of purity? You are no better than the holy men you were telling me about.
The difference is that I know I am right, Uriah.
Spoken like a true autocrat.
You misunderstand, Uriah. I have seen the narrow path that humanity must walk to survive. This is how we must begin.
There's that faith again, which it didn't turn out that way. Right? But anyways.
It's a dangerous road you travel. To deny humanity a thing will only make them crave it more. I see no reality in which your goals do not lead us to...
Boy, was he right there. Especially when it comes to the 40th millennium.
Disaster and ruin. Beware your subjects do not begin to see you as a god. I truly hope, in the name of all that is divine, you are right. But I dread the future you forge.
I wish only the best for my people.
I believe you, Apocalypsis. But I cannot be a part of it.
Hey, you gotta respect somebody who goes down with the ship. Now, I said something different. I was just making a joke in the last one I did, where I said it was just a building, whatever, but it's a stupid joke. I shouldn't have said it. But, anyways. But you gotta respect that. Whether you're religious or not. This is gonna be like an hour and 30 minutes. I'm sorry, guys. Let's see if this is the end here. I can't remember. Okay. I didn't mute it, did I? No. Huh. Oh. Alright. That's the end of it there. So we're going to end it there, guys. Look, if you totally disagree with me, that's fine. On what I said here. Those are my thoughts on it. And some of the biblical side of things on it. And, hey, like I said, you disagree, you disagree. If you don't, you don't. Even if you're a Christian and you disagree with my thoughts, that's fine too. Put your thoughts in the comments if you want. If you liked what you saw, please give me a like and subscription. And I also do a Warhammer 40k lore in the Bible shorts that I do. I forgot to say that at the beginning. I'm gonna have to put that in a comment or something. But anyways, if you liked what you see, or if you liked the video, or if you disliked the video, thank you. And if you disliked the video, thank you for at least giving me a chance. All right, you guys have a wonderful day.